Hey guys, JB here. It's my first car tutorial, but I do have a lot of experience working on cars. I do have some Volvo dealership experience along the way. Now these are getting a bit older. What we got here is a XC90 D5 from 2009. And obviously the Volvo dealership prices, even specialist prices, can scare some of the people away. Now the cars are getting cheaper. People can't necessarily afford those huge fees anymore. So what we're going to try and do here is two common problems on them. We've got a steering pump that's got way too grindy and it's also leaking. We have recently replaced this bottle here because there's filters in here that can sometimes make the fluid sludge up, and it helped it for a couple of months. Do you reckon so? Yeah, a few months, but now the problem's definitely still not right. So we're going to change the steering pump, and I'm going to try to do this without the special Volvo's tool to remove the drive belt, because if you just come down here, Toby, there's hardly a gap. So you can't use normal sockets in here. Volvo have a special tool for this, but I think I've got something that's going to do the trick. And then I'm just going to show you how I'm going to get to oxygen sensor. Bank 1 sensor 1 also has a problem. It has fault code. I believe it's circuit malfunction or shows up as low voltage if you read the fault codes through the dash. There's lots of videos on YouTube on how to read your fault codes without a scan tool on these. But depending on what equipment you're using, you sometimes get different explanations for the fault code. But we're going to replace the oxygen sensor or lambda probe, whatever you want to call it. To make it a bit less messy, I'm personally going to suck out the power steering fluid first. We're always going to get some mess when we take the hoses and pipes off, but I'm using a big workshop vacuum sucker here. I know not everyone's got one of them, but you can sort of improvise or just clamp your hose off even if you wanted to, but we're actually going to replace the fluid as much as we can, so that comes in handy for that. I'll show you how I do that later with it running. And the first thing I need to do is remove this belt cover here, which has got the T230, the T30 bolts here, just one here and one down here that I've already removed. Alright, so before removing a drive belt, I'd advise that you take a note of the direction of it, because it's going to make life a lot easier when there's just no belt there, empty pulleys, because we're going to replace the belt and you can spend hours trying to get it around the right way. So either take a photo, but it's dark and tight down there, so I've gone from a good old school drawing. Now the tool I'm going to try and do this with is a T55 piece from a set. They don't make a T60 hardly anywhere. I believe they're quite hard to get, so I've used the biggest one in one of those Torx socket sets. I've got my T55. I'm going to try this long handled spanner. Now it's probably going to fall out and drive me mad, so I'm just going to put a bit of tape around it so that my spanner holds it tight, and then we'll be back in a sec. Alright, to be honest, you can barely see where the tensioner hole is that we put this tool in. So I'm just literally feeling for it, and it's just down there, sort of the 7 o'clock position in relation to the pulley. It's just down here. You can feel it with your hand. And now I'm going to try and get this in there. It's going to be a bit fiddly. I'm going to try and get it in there and then move it clockwise. So I've got the tool in and I'm going to pull it towards the front of the car. So far it's working. Okay, then I'm going to flick the belt off quickly and relax. If it felt too tight I would have stopped, because I don't want to ruin the actual tensioner, but so far it's worked with no damage at all. Alright, so I've removed the belt. I'll just quickly show you. I've also removed the hose that came from the power steering reservoir down to there. That's just a hose clamp, that's simple. Took that off, tried not to make too much mess again, but obviously oil's starting. We've covered the alternator with a rag to try not to get oil through that if we can help it. There's holes in the front of this power steering pulley, and you need to use these holes to be able to get the bolts out that hold the pump on. So you spin it round, there's a 10mm there, a 10mm here, and a 10mm over here. So there's 3 10mm we need to get to. I'll get to them in a minute. And then there's just a bracket at the back around here, the bar that comes from the engine that supports the power steering pump. We need to get that bolt out, and I need to undo these 8mm bolts here that hold the power steering hose on. Alright, so the pump is off. I forgot to say, you can use the cap if your new pump or recon pump came with a cap on the end. Put that on to avoid more spillages as well. Still got a little bit of oil down here, but nothing too major. So the power steering pump is off quite quickly, to be honest. It only took about 5 minutes. So I've done up the 3 bolts, nipped them up to begin with, well, just most of the way in, then the next one most of the way in, and so on, and then come back round, do them all up tight. Screwed the bracket on the back. Now what I'm just going to quickly do now before I put this pressure pipe, steering pipe on, is just replace this O-ring. I've got a reconditioned pump here, and they're good, they know what they're doing, they're giving me the O-ring, but I believe sometimes that's a separate part, but it makes all sense to replace that whilst we're in there. I'm just going to try and get this out without scratching, just lift it out with a pick, and then replace it with this new black one. The Volvo parts are still green. Yeah, they look about the right size. Just going to put the black O-ring on, lube it up slightly with some silicone probably, or something clean, and then I'll screw that on. And alright, so we got the belt back on. It was quite hard to film, to be honest. It was easier with the 2 of us because I haven't jacked the car up, I haven't taken the under tray off, haven't taken anything off. The car's still on the ground, so I just literally got down on the ground, put my arm through the wheel arch, could get through a flap in a flexible trim with my hand. I had to route the belt quite carefully around the crankshaft. It's actually quite hard, it keeps falling off, it's ribbed down there. And whilst I was doing that, I had my friend up here, helper, assistant, just basically keeping the belt straight on the pulleys, trying to keep the belt taut as well so it doesn't go too loose and fall off. And then I came up here with the tool whilst he held the belt up the top for me, and we just put the belt on the tensioner pulley last, and then went round, made sure that everything's okay. We actually did it quite fast, probably 2 minutes, but it's not as easy as it looks if you haven't done a drive belt before like this. It can be a bit fiddly, so have a second person with you to help. Alright guys, so the new one's all fitted. You do need a special type of steering. The actual Volvo fluid itself is really expensive. I'm in Australia here. A company called Penrite do an aftermarket version which is suitable for this from your local car parts dealers. It's about half the price, but it's still $33 a litre or something, trade price. It's not cheap. We're going to use a few of these because we're going to do a flush. But before we do the flush, we need to bleed the system. It's not good for these to just pour the fluid straight into it. So there is a procedure listed on forums, I expect, on the internet, because the Volvo training documents definitely had this, and the softwares and stuff. I believe before you start the engine, you basically need to turn the steering all the way to the full lock, right or left, whatever, just basically all the way to the locks, hold it there, come round, look for bubbles, or get your assistant to do the steering whilst you're looking for bubbles, and whilst he steers away left and right, you want to keep topping it up and making sure that all the bubbles come up. The fluid level will drop down a bit. Keep doing it until the bubbles go. Will definitely help when you start it up. It won't just be dry and just suddenly cause problems with the new steering components. Also, this pump was obviously empty of fluid, so it's going to be it's going to be dry inside, so we need to get the fluid sort of turning around it as well. There's different methods of doing this, but yeah. So Toby's going to do the steering for us. Come back in a bit. Right, so now got the engine running, and I'm just going to suck the fluid out with this vacuum oil sucker at the same time that I top the new fluid in, so that the level doesn't drop down to damage the new steering pump basically. There are other gadgets and proper powers doing flushing the tools to do this, but I'm trying to do it in a home environment, although I do have a very handy oil